Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene, where empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world. My name is Phyllis O'Neill, and I use the pronouns she and her. With me today is our minister, Reverend Jen Youngsun, and sharing their stories with us today are Steve Kuzma and Emmett Band. We also have collaborative pianist Suzanne Giordano, vocalist Bob Sorentz, and Izzy Kreka, and working behind the scenes, technical communications coordinator, Kat Johnson. We gather in worship to find meaning and to live more deeply. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to our better selves, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, we're glad you're here. If you're visiting with us today, we'd love to hear from you and invite you to fill out the visitor form as you feel called. The link is being dropped into the chat now.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. I'm Rev Jen, and I use the pronouns she and her. And I just want to continue to encourage everyone to read their emails every week, because that's the best place to get connected with what's going on in the community. And as things move really, really quickly with the ever-changing pandemic, that's where you're going to find the latest news. Things are moving quickly and we're responding quickly. And so we appreciate you taking the time to read your email, to read your weekly connections, and just keep up with everything that's going on. A lot of exciting things are going on. Welcome. Good morning.
To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in sunlight, or a grain of sand. To worship is to be silent, receptive, before a tree astir with the wind, or the passing shadow of a cloud. To worship is to work with dedication and skill. It is to pause from work and listen to a strain of music. To worship is to sing with the beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still, small voice within. Worship is a loneliness seeking communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain. Worship is kindred fire within our hearts. It moves through deeds of kindness and through acts of love. Worship is the mystery within us reaching out to the mystery beyond. It is an inarticulate silence learning to speak. It is the window of the moment open to the sky of the eternal.
Those words were written by Jacob Trapp, who was a Unitarian minister. He served our faith in the early to mid 20th century, and he would have been part of the creation of this new religion, the consolidated Unitarian Universalists. Now, even though each of those religions have their own historic connections to liberal Christianity, by the time Jacob Trapp wrote those words, we were already in this new era where church could be in the woods, and church could be anytime you listened with dedication to a strain of music, or anytime you intentionally performed acts of love. In those years, there was a lot of experimentation with rituals and symbols, and a few of those have been widely adopted, like the lighting of our chalice. And there are annual traditions too that have really been adopted by most congregations, like water communion and flower communion, coming of age, Burning Bowl, which we're doing next week, and the one we're doing today. The Wild and Precious Life tradition is one that several other UU churches follow, based on the poetry of Mary Oliver, who, despite not being a UU herself, has become an important figure, at least in our liturgical life. Last week's celebration of poetry continues today as a rich source of practices for intentional living. Practices like learning a bit of poetry by heart so that you can call up those words when you need them, or trying a hand at writing poetry yourself, or reading poetry out loud every day. And today's practice, reflecting on one poem, living with it for a time, and then turning that into testimony, into a painting, into a song. Now, I had intended to find speakers for each decade. I wanted to find a child, someone from baby to age 10, someone between the ages of 10 and 20, someone in their 20s, someone in their 30s, and so on. I wasn't quite able to do that for this service. And so I'd like to do this again in late summer, like in July or August. I'd like to do this service again. And so if you would like to have a chance to represent your decade later this summer, please come and see me. This morning, we will hear from two really wonderful people who reflected on the meaning of this poem, and they would like to have the opportunity to share it with you today. So come, let us celebrate this one wild and precious life. Come, let us worship together.
The Summer Day by Mary Oliver. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass. The one who is eating sugar out of my hand. Who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down. Who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one and precious life?
My name is Emmett Band, and my pronouns are he and him, and I celebrated my 76th birthday just last Tuesday. One of the first meetings I had with Rev Jen, she said to me in conversation that I had a lot of boy energy. I wasn't sure exactly what that meant, but I gave it a little bit of thought. And if it means getting excited about something and following that dream, I'm guilty. I have boy energy. I've spent most of my life engaged with speed skating, racing cars at tracks in California, backpacking into the high Sierras out of Bridgeport above the tree line. And those really filled me up with exactly what I wanted at that time in my life. The funny thing is, being 76, I look at that and I don't feel 76, but clearly I am 76. But I still think in terms of things I used to do in the past. But I couldn't pass the physical to get an SCCA license and I sure the heck couldn't run a short track speed skating start. Fall down and collapse at the first corner. Nowadays, I approach things a little differently, with a little more caution. When I set the ladder against the house to go up on the roof, I make sure it's really stable. I'll probably lean it against something, which I wouldn't have done years ago. The force that I used to have within me that gave me the sense that I could accomplish anything I willed, it's diminished. It's not there anymore, not like it once was. At this point in my life, things are softer and gentler. I focus more on the things that surround me. There are some volunteer sunflowers under the living room window. And every morning I walk by them and I say good morning to them. That's more of the person I have become. Phyllis and I were hiking in Arches National Park a couple of years ago, and I ran across a guy. Now, he was about my age, and he had a little cap on that said Vietnam veteran. And I don't generally approach Vietnam veterans, but I approached this guy, and I said, "Hi, how you doing? Where were you stationed?" Well, he was stationed at Da Nang. And I said, "I was stationed at Chu Lai, 40 miles to the south." We had this wonderful conversation. And after the conversation, I walked one way, he and his wife walked another way, and I just started crying. And I couldn't understand the why. But these emotions that were welling up inside of me that filled my eyes with tears also created a situation where all of a sudden I was more in touch with something that I'd kept buried for a really, really long time. I was now subsequently able to look at guys that I saw and talk to them and build relationships with them. When I go into the parking lot and I see somebody with a Sikorsky helicopter sticker on the back of his truck, I got to try to figure out which guy that is in the local store. So I was once a risk taker of a different sort. You know, I'd drive my car down the carousel at Laguna Seca Raceway and be on the throttle the whole way. But now I take different kinds of risks. I take emotional risks. I'm more emotionally available. Phyllis says, or uses the phrase that I'm emotionally naked, or I would desire to be, or would strive to be emotionally naked, as opposed to being all walled off. So maybe my life isn't so wild and crazy anymore, but it's certainly precious in the sense that I pay attention to some things that are smaller than the things I used to pay attention to. I'm aware, keenly aware of the beauty of everyday events. I'll still work in the garden. I'll still make repairs to the house. And all that is very good and fulfilling. But my plan going forward is to cultivate relationships. In my wild and crazy life, I want to focus on the things that really matter, the people who surround me, the people I care for, the people I love. Thank you.
Blessings to you, Emmett. Be thou with us honest and deeply felt emotions. Be thou with us, tears of recognition. Be thou with us, tenderness and simple joy.
Hi, my name is Steve Kuzma, and my pronouns are he and him. In October, Rev Jen put out the call for congregants to participate in this service. I sat with the idea for a few days and then volunteered to represent the 60s. But I'm at the real tail end of that. My next birthday, I will be 70. But I got the job, and I began to think about what to say. I found the summer day and read it and reread it and thought about it until around New Year's Eve, and then I began to write. The first half of Mary Oliver's poem is so about the now, the very particular now of a really small event, but it starts out big or kind of huge. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper. I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who's eating sugar out of my hand, who's moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. It's the big part of that, the big questions that I can struggle with. I sometimes get lost in thinking and worrying about things, some of them in the past, some in the future, and most, if not all of them, beyond my control. It's comforting to be reminded by the poem that my life is in the present, that my life is in today and in the hours and minutes and seconds spent in how I pass this time. My time with the world, my children and grandchildren, my wife, and especially with myself. I particularly like the part about wings and floating away. It's a brief moment that she spends with the grasshopper, a transient moment. At the very end, the poet asks us to look forward. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? This question for me at a time when most of my life is behind me. But I realized that I've been living with this question since I retired and moved here almost 5 years ago. I moved here from Michigan to be close to my children. They had both moved here several years before, and so that my grandchildren, who had started to arrive, would know me and I would know them. Those aspirations have been realized. I'm so grateful for living across town from my son and his family, and just a 2-hour drive from my daughter and her husband in Portland. Babysitting grandchildren has been a tremendous source for spiritual growth and development, something that demands that I be very much in the now, while watching out for sharp corners, trip hazards, and making sure that there are snacks. Add to all that my finding love in the UUCE choir the first fall that I was here, and my life is good, better than I could have ever dreamed. I've been a UU since 1999, and I was particularly grateful to have this vibrant church community here for me to become a part of. I found community, friends, and ways to be of service here at UUCE. But even with all that is so good in my life, I still find myself trying to learn how to be at ease with living as a human being instead of as a human doing, to break the habit of feeling that my worth as a person is connected to what I do or how much I do. It still seems to me that I should be doing more at a time when I don't have to do anything. After a lifetime of work and deadlines and mortgage and tuition payments, it's hard to let go of a sense of urgency about life. I realize that all of these responsibilities gave me a sense of purpose that I miss. Also, my work as a commercial photographer was something that I did well within a community that I knew well. I miss that too. I don't know very well how to not work. And that's another reason I really love the second half of the summer day. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Mary Oliver professes ignorance about prayer, but then gives us rapturous instructions on how to be, and a profound reason, the ultimate reason, to simply be. So, for me, to learn how to live with greater intention, to be at ease with myself, accept myself as I am, live fully into my new life in Oregon, and to simply do what makes me come alive is what I plan to do with my one wild and precious life. Thanks.
I'd like to invite everyone into a time of longer prayer and meditation this morning. So go ahead and find a comfortable place for your body so that it can rest and breathe as well as it can. And if you feel safe, go ahead and close your eyes so that you can focus more on your internal landscape. As you find that posture of rest, can you find where you're breathing right now? Where is your breath? If it's up close to your neck or your shoulders, if it's high in your chest, see if you can let the breathing drop to your belly. Inhale naturally. Notice your belly expanding as you inhale. And then exhale through your heart. Imagine exhaling through your heart. Remember that as long as you're breathing, it's enough. Breathing in, feel a spirit of thankfulness. Breathing out through your heart, feel a sense of abundance. This is enough. As you exhale through your heart, send all that gratitude to yourself first. This is where loving kindness meditation starts. This is the beginning of metta. Some of you might find it helpful to picture yourself sitting in front of you. Sitting in front of you is the part of you that needs the most care, the most love, the most forgiveness right now. Give yourself that attention, whatever the need, and say to yourself, may I be happy. May I be well. May I be at peace. And now turn your attention to those who are the closest to you, your loved ones. Bring to mind those who need some special care today. Today, I want to send out some extra special care to Ryan, to Pamela and her family, to Darius. I want to send a special prayer of healing to Sarah Sauter and her husband Ron. They are both ill with the COVID virus and they're resting comfortably in their home in New Mexico. Of course, Sarah and Ron had to put off moving to Oregon for a few weeks. We know many who are sick now and many who are struggling with other challenges. And so we bring their faces and names to our mind and we pray, may you be healthy. May you find strength and rest and recovery. May you be well and at peace. And now we turn our attention to the people that we don't know very well yet. These are our neighbors and acquaintances. These are people in this very church whom you don't know well yet. They're your future friends. You may not know their story, but you want good things for them. Inhale easily. Notice your belly moving. Exhale through your heart and send them this prayer. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be at peace. And now let's turn to the larger community of all beings. Our bodies breathe with 7 billion other humans, as well as with the trees and with the oceans and all the microbes. Inhaling and then exhaling through our hearts, let us send prayers to the interconnected cosmos, all the living and non-living. All we need is right here and right now. May all creatures, great and small, be well. May all things be free. May all beings be happy and at peace. May it be so. Amen.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. We carry these in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you so much, Phyllis. Today was Phyllis's first time as a worship associate, and you do have a beautiful voice. Someone mentioned that in the chat, and you have a lovely presence. Thank you for sharing yourself with us. Anybody can participate as a worship associate, and so if you would like to do what Phyllis is doing today, just contact me. And also heartfelt thanks to Steve and Emmett for showing us what this kind of community sharing looks like and sounds like. So, thank you. I hope that they inspired you to maybe say yes to the next time we do this in late summer. And now, as you go into this glorious day, may the blessings of life be upon you and upon this entire congregation. May the stories you have heard give you hope for the future. May the love we have shared bring strength and joy to your hearts. And may the peace of this community be with us all until we are together again. Amen. Go in peace, everyone.